Magic, white and black, the science of finite and infinite life. If the organization of the physical body becomes impaired to such an extent that the principle of life cannot employ it any longer to serve as an instrument for its activity, it ceases to act. Death may begin at the head, the heart or the lungs, but life lingers longest in the head, and it may still be active there to a certain extent after the body, to all exterior appearances, has become unconscious and ceased to live. The power of thought may continue for a time to work in its habitual manner, although sensation has ceased to exist in the nerves. This activity may even grow in intensity as the principles become disunited. And if the thought of the dying is intensely directed upon an absent friend, it may impress itself upon the consciousness of that friend and perhaps cause him to see the apparition of the dying. At last, vitality leaves the brain and the higher principles depart, carrying with them their proper activity, life and consciousness, leaving behind an empty form, a mask, an illusion. There need not necessarily be any loss of consciousness in regard to the persons and things by which we may be surrounded. The only consciousness which necessarily ceases is that which refers to his personality, of physical sensation, pain, weight, heat and cold, hunger and thirst, which may have affected the physical form. As his life departs from the brain, another state of consciousness may come into existence, because he enters in relation to a different order of things. The principle carrying memory emerges from the brain, and every event of the life which is ebbing away is reviewed by the mind. Picture after picture presents itself with living vividness before his consciousness, and he lives in a few minutes his whole life again. Persons in a state of drowning have experienced that state and regained their life. That impression which has been the strongest survives all the rest. The other impressions disappear to reappear again in the devachanic state. No man dies unconscious, whatever external appearances may seem to indicate to the contrary. Even a madman will have a moment at the time of his death, when his intellect will be restored. Those who are present at such solemn moments should take care not to disturb, by outbursts of grief or otherwise, that process by which the soul beholds the effects of the past and lays the plan for its future existence. The process of the parting of the perisprit from the physical remains is described by a clairvoyant as follows. At first I saw a beautiful light of a pale blue color, in which appeared a small egg-shaped substance about 3 feet above the head. It was not stationary, but wavered to and fro like a balloon in the air. Gradually, it elongated to the length of the body, the whole enveloped in a mist or smoke. I perceived a face corresponding in features to that which was so soon to be soulless, only brighter, more smooth, more beautiful, yet unfinished, with the same want of expression that we observe in a newborn infant. With every breath from the dying body, the ethereal form was added to and became more perfect. Presently the feet became defined, not side by side as the dying man had placed himself, but one hanging below the other, and one knee bent, as newborn infants would be in an accidental position. The body appeared to be enshrouded in a cloud-like mist. A countless host of other presences seemed to be near. When the whole was complete, all slowly passed out of sight. This ethereal body is the soul body or perisprit of the person that died. It is not the spirit itself, but it may still be made luminous by the spirit as it was during life. It may still contain the good and evil tendencies which it acquired during life. If man's spirit rises above the attractions of his lower self would be unconscious and disintegrate. But if he clings to his animal nature with a great intensity of desire, a centre of consciousness will become established therein. And its sense of personality may continue to exist for a while in his animal soul even after the physical body is dead. The time during which an astral corpse may remain in this state before it is entirely dissolved depends on the density and strength of its elements. It may differ from a few hours or days to a great many years. Man is made up of a great many living elements or principles, of which each one exists in its own individual state, while they all receive their life from the spirit. When the spirit withdraws, they become separate, while each one may retain for a while its own particular life and consciousness, in the same sense as a wheel which is once set into motion will continue to run until after the force is exhausted, even if the original motive power is withdrawn. The astral remnant of a man is therefore not the man, but a part of his psychic organism, which may or may not be conscious that it exists, and which may or may not be connected with the spiritual monad, whose instrument it was during life. This Kama Loka state is the land of the shadows, the Hades of the ancient Greeks, and the purgatory of the Roman Catholic Church. Its inhabitants may or may not possess consciousness and intelligence, but the astral souls of average honest men and women possess no intelligence of their own. They can, however, be made to act intelligently by the power of the elementals. Paracelsus says, "Men and women die every day, whose souls during their lives have been subject to the influence and guidance of elementals. How much easier will it be for such elementals to influence the sidereal bodies of such persons and to make them act as they please after their souls have lost the protection which their physical bodies afforded. They may use these soul bodies to move physical objects from place to place, to carry such objects from distant countries, and to perform other feats of a similar kind that may appear miraculous to the uninitiated." The state of consciousness of the animal soul after the physical form has become unconscious and lifeless may therefore differ widely in different persons, according to the conditions that have been established during its connection with the body. The soul of an average person in Kama Loka with only moderate selfish desires is not conscious and intelligent enough to know that its physical body has died and that it is itself undergoing the process of disintegration. But the soul of a person whose whole consciousness was intensely centered in self may be conscious and intelligent enough to remember its past life and to feel its impending fate. Seeking to prolong its existence, it may cling for protection to the organism of some living being and thereby cause an obsession. Not only weak-minded human beings, but also animals may be subject to such an obsession. To a body without sensation or consciousness, it can make no difference under what conditions it may continue to exist or perish, because it cannot realize its existence. But to a soul in which the spark of divine intelligence has kindled consciousness and sensation, its surrounding conditions will be of importance because it can realize them more or less fully according to the degree of its consciousness. Such surroundings in the state after death each man creates for himself during life by his thoughts, his words, and his acts. Man is creating all his life the condition wherein he will live in the hereafter. Thought is material and solid to those that live on the plane of thought. Even on the physical plane, every form that exists is materialized thought, grown or made into a form. The world of the souls is a world in which thought itself appears material and solid to those who exist in that world. Man is a center from which continually thought is evolved and crystallizes into forms in that world. His thoughts are things that have life and form and tenacity, real entities, solid and more enduring than the forms of the physical plane. Good thoughts are light and rise above us, but evil thoughts are heavy and sink. The world below us to which they sink is the sphere of the grossest, most diseased and sensual thoughts evolved by evil-disposed and ignorant men. It is a world still more material and solid to its inhabitants than ours is to us. It is the habitation of man-created personal deities, devils and monstrosities invented by the morbid imagination of man. They are only the products of thought, but nevertheless they are real and substantial to those who live among them and realize their existence. The myths of hell and purgatory are based on ill-understood facts. Hells exist, but man is himself their creator. Brutal man creates monsters by the working of his diseased imagination during life. Disembodied man will be attracted to his creations. There are few persons who are not subject to evil thoughts. Such thoughts are the reflex of the lurid light from the region of evil, but they cannot take form unless we give them form by dwelling on them and feeding them, with the substance taken from our own mind. Love is the life of the good, malice the life of the evil. An evil thought evolved unconsciously is an illusion without life. An evil thought brought into existence with malice becomes malicious and living. If it is embodied in an act, a new devil will be born into the world. The horrors of hell exist only for those who have been conscious, voluntary and malicious collaborators in peopling it with the products of their fancy. The beauties of heaven are only realized by him who has created a heaven within himself during his life. Pain is only caused if a being exists under abnormal conditions. Devils do not suffer in hell because they are there in their own natural element. They would suffer if they had to enter in heaven. They belong to the darkness and suffer in the presence of light. A man suffers if his head is kept under water. A fish suffers if he is taken out of the water. A cruel and vicious person may enjoy sights which will horrify others, but if he still has some good elements within his organization, they will suffer until they have become separated from evil. If there are spiritual powers for good, there must be spiritual powers for evil is merely perverted good. If man is a temple of God, he may likewise be a residence for the devil. If man has a spirit, that spirit can enter into relations with either of the two states. But for a spiritless man, an animal, neither God nor the devil has any use. Nor can the highest Dien Chahan of evil exert any power over a man unless that man has already a devil in him.